All right, guys, we're going to look at this video by MentisWave. Our Economic Illiteracy Crisis, Refuting Socialist Mayor Policies.
We are poor.
I swear I've seen this before.
Higher taxes.
Hey, internets. So recently in the United States, a couple of socialists have won mayoral elections. You may have heard these two names spouted in the news: Zoran Mamdani in New York City, and Katie Wilson in Seattle. And what's relevant about this is that these recent events have proven that the greatest
fuck is Leaflit?
Who the fuck is that?
Some clueless blue-haired woketoid shouting into a microphone during some anti-bad guy squad demonstration that the Western developed world needs to import infinity plus a billion refugees and supply them with infinity welfare and infinity free housing, and that we are to accomplish this task somehow without actually changing welfare into a voluntary system or doing anything to address the zoning laws in regards to housing construction.
Yeah, obviously, if you just raise taxes, then people magically make more money. That's how it works, right? You take more money from them and then it just fills in. It's kind of like when you have it's like when you make a hole, right? And like you're in your backyard and you dig a hole, and then over time the whole fault fills itself in again. It's just like that. Yeah, that's how it works.
And of course, by doubling down on the laws that violate freedom of association,
everyone knows that,
instead of abolishing them or addressing the
Oh yeah, true. They just print more money. That's true. Well, you could just spawn more money.
National debts. And then, of course, these same people wonder why inflation is so high, why public trust is at an all-time low, or why housing is so expensive, and why the welfare system keeps failing. Those people are definitely a big problem. Thinking you can give infinity people infinity free stuff are definitely an issue, but it's time we really look at the root cause of the problem. What's really going on in their noggin that causes them to believe that this could actually work? But rather, I'm talking about a problem that even some people who are viewed by the public as being far right are guilty of. I'll stop beating around the bush. This issue, of course, is our severe economic illiteracy crisis. It seems that large numbers of fairly well-educated people, especially amongst the youth, unfortunately, seem to not understand that many of these socialist policies have been tried and failed. And not only have they been tried and failed, but they failed for almost comically obvious reasons that could have been easily foreseen by any rational person. And the fact that we're seeing this economic illiteracy on both sides of the political spectrum to some degree really proves it to be a systemic issue where our flawed, arguably by design education system has critically failed in its role to inform the public about the basics of the basics of the basics.
Who the fuck
Which,
is
on the bright
Leaflit?
side, kind
Thank
of
you for the
means
follows,
that
guys.
if you're
Thank you.
one of the people who believes in one of these things that I'm going to refute in this video, it's almost kind of not your fault. Because they don't really teach a lot of this in school. If you're just a regular person and you don't really have a serious interest in economics,
let's find out how retarded I actually am.
Your general public school teacher didn't tell you about any of these things. And in fact, there's probably a higher chance that they outright lied to you about them. And it's understandable, really, because some economic concepts can be admittedly a little boring. So in this video, I'm going to try and remedy that by identifying a lot of the economic concepts that a lot of people are clearly misunderstanding, as proven by these recent elections, and provide some refutations to some of the nonsense and clarifications, while still keeping things as interesting and meme-worthy as possible. But first of all, let's just make sure you're not one of those people in the year 2025 who is still not using a VPN on the internet. Despite the fact that a VPN will save you money in the long run if you're using any kind of streaming services at all, which, you know, pretty much all of us are using. And so, this video's sponsor is private internet access. A lot of people, unfortunately, still don't quite understand why you need a VPN while using the internet. And it's often the same old fallacy of thinking that if you aren't doing anything wrong, then you don't need privacy. Yeah, no. This mentality will trap you in the mindset that it's perfectly fine for the government and hackers
I actually don't know much about VPNs, to be honest.
Back and watch everything
My mom says that they're kind of BS, but I don't know.
Trying to steal your identity, your credit cards, your passwords, and other personal data.
I know a lot of people use them for like bypassing
the best way to protect yourself from these problems.
Like locks for certain areas.
Significantly less than the danger of using the internet unprotected. Private internet access solves the problem for you by using RAM-only, no-log servers and top-of-the-line encryption to mask your IP online and stop potential bad actors from stealing your info. Not only are they a top-quality quality VPN, but their app is stable, user-friendly, and available on all of your devices without limitations. PIA also comes with excellent downloading and upload speed, tons of security features, and one particular favorite is that it is very streamer-friendly. They have servers all over the world you can choose from, and many of them are optimized for Netflix, Hulu, Amazon Prime, HBO Max, Disney and Paramount Plus, etc., etc. And you can use PIA to unlock the geo-restricted content on streaming services.
Yeah, that's what I heard it was good for.
To a much wider variety of movies and TV shows.
Oh, also
it's also very affordable.
Also, I know people that use them for gacha games because some gacha games are region locked, so you have to use a VPN to play them. Like Uma Musume, for instance.
Personal link in the description below. You can get private internet access now for 83% off at only $2.03 per month, plus 4 months free, and all covered with a 30-day money-back, risk-free guarantee. Seriously, it's a good VPN. Get it. Anyways, before really refuting anything, I would like to start this off by giving you all a basic cheat code that will allow you to understand a lot of economic concepts.
Why am I so
in fact,
dumb?
Most economic
I
concepts,
don't know, man.
really, simply by fully and completely understanding them.
Aspen Golding gonna screw you? I don't want to screw him.
Which is that when it comes to the...
That's weird, bro. So like, hold on, let me get this straight. If you like a content creator on YouTube, it means you want to fuck them? That's weird, bro. That's crazy. Holy shit, that's weird, man. I can't even imagine being like
power
that.
Dynamics of trading,
bro.
There's actually kind of
You
a
get yourself
true
checked.
dichotomy in it. There are only two ways you can really get people to do something or give you something you want if they don't feel like doing so. You can either force them to do so by using power, or offer them a reward for voluntary compliance. That's pretty much it. You're doing one or two of those things. You're either punishing people or rewarding people for giving you what you want. Or trade, as we like to
He
call
don't want a
it.
homophobic... Hold on. He doesn't want a homophobic old lady like you? Oh yeah, dude, I totally hate gay people. So true. So true.
Third option.
You fucking got me, bro.
You can try and use things like guilting people into doing what you want, but honestly, that's also a concept that falls under power because it only works if you have power, or at least some kind of intellectual authority gained by first going through this dichotomy. So if you truly understand this, if you realize that it's either power or voluntary association, and you truly, fully get all of the things that this fact implies, then again, congratulations, you now understand most of economics. And what's nice about this cheat code is that you won't just start to kind of understand economics the more you think about it and the more you realize what it implies, but you'll also understand why certain economic concepts
I actually love Heckler's chat. I love it. It's so funny.
the way they are. Which, hilariously enough, getting this will eventually even put you a cut above a lot of well-educated economists. Because one problem with standard economics education I've seen is that a lot of it focuses way too much on the what and not enough on the why. For example, you can go to college and study things like stochastic discount factor, which is a moderately complex economic mathematical concept that tries to help you determine the true value of an asset by discounting how its cash flow is expected to go in the future. Now, what makes it somewhat complex, aside from just the math, is that, of course...
Hold up. She's doing what that chick did to Hassan, tried to agree with him to get laid. Okay, so... hold on. Let's break this down. I'm actually kind of interested now. So let's break this down. So according to your worldview, a woman can't agree with a man without wanting to fuck him? Is that what you believe? I'm just curious. Is that actually what you believe? That's pretty sexist, bro. I know. That's bro. Yeah. That's pretty misogynistic, you know? Pull him up? I don't even know how to pull him up, honestly, because he's on kick. Let me see if I can. How do I pop this out? You're transphobic, so yes. Define transphobic. Wait, I don't even know how to pop him out. And I pop this. I can't even do it. I can't do it, chap. I don't know how. You're transphobic. So define transphobic. You don't want me in women's bathrooms licking toilet seats? You know, you're right. True. So if I don't want a person going into women's bathrooms licking toilet seats, that's transphobic? So according to your definition of transphobic, if I don't want you, I assume you're a trans person. You, a trans person, if I don't want you, a trans person, if I'm against you specifically going into women's restrooms to lick the toilet seats, that makes me transphobic? Damn, bro, you fucking got me. You know what? I might be transphobic, actually. You know, actually, you might be fucking right. Because if that's the definition of transphobic, then you fucking got me, bro. You got me. Damn, you know what? I am transphobic. Fuck. Damn, bro. That's crazy. You got me, dude. You got me. That was not the point of a hairy big black is in there and she's dude, this guy is fucking tripping. Dude, this guy's so funny. Dude, you're so funny, bro. That's crazy. It says that was not the point if a hairy big black wait, what? What the hell is this? This guy's trolling, man. This guy's trolling. This guy's fucking absolutely trolling. I love it though. Good job. Good, nice troll, bro. Nice troll. I like it.
The cash flow is variable. And what I often see is economics majors, they'll somehow walk out with their degree understanding concepts like this, but having no clue at all why it happens. Which is weird because you just consider this basic dichotomy.
I feel bad now for you. You sound heartbroken when I said Asman gets screwed. I mean, good for him. That's good. I mean, he deserves it. He deserves it. That's so weird though, man. Like, so like, hold on. So if you watch like who do you watch? Do you watch Hassan? Like, who's your favorite content creators? V5C. Who's your favorite? Who's your favorite content creator of all time? I don't know who that is. Sorry. I literally don't know who that is. Yeah. Why do arguments and insults always revolve around sexual activity, says Truth and Redemption? Do you want to know the secret? You want to know why? I'll tell you why. I'll tell you why, Truth and Redemption. It's because these people are fucking degenerates. They're fucking degenerate freaks. That's fucking why. Dude, bro. Dude, Cannabis, can you at least be as funny as Vivek? Like, dude, you're dude, this isn't even fun. Like, you wanker. Dude, this isn't even, bro. You're bad at trolling, dude. Dude, get out of here. Dude. I would have put up with it if you were funny, but it's just not. It's not funny. Let's see. Vivek says I don't know what you're talking about, bro. If you have no personality, you make sexuality as your identity. Dude, it's because they're degens. They're absolute fucking degens. Like, they can't think of anything outside of like literally sex is their entire identity. Like, you ever think about that, chat? That sex is everything to them. It's like they can't even imagine a world in which the context isn't sex. Isn't that weird? That's so weird, man. Yeah, it's actual. That's most males. That's just you, bro. That's just you, man. Dude, that's so weird. Yeah. You should go, like, to therapy or something, you know? I don't know. Maybe just goon. You know, maybe just goon. I feel like you probably just need it, you know? You just need a goon, and you'll be good. Like, I agree with him I don't know who that is. Sorry, I don't. On Trump? Well, what do you think about Trump? What do you feel about Trump? You only like the 18 plus Penny Parker? So when you say you like the 18 plus Penny Parker, do you just change the number to 18? Like does she have to look different, or do you like just look at her and be like, she's 18 now, and then like is that what you like? Like, what do you mean? What do you mean by that? Like, do you take like the regular Penny Parker and then you just say she's 18 now? You take like the anime route or what? You draw bigger boobs like once. Bro, this guy's so funny. You like Penny Rule 2014? Fucking Penis Parker, man. What am I witnessing? Just Kick being crazy, man. All right. Keep it going though. I'm getting bored. I'm getting bored, man. You got anything else? They're sexual deviants. They deviate from sexual normal, so they shallow manage their entire identity. Yeah. Assam would screw, bro. What are you talking? Assam would screw even if he was. I don't, dude. Wouldn't screw what, bro? I don't know what you're talking about, man. Are you like ESL or something? Like, what language do you speak? Do you speak English or something? Or is like, do you have a different like primary language? Oh, you hate watch me. Well, thank you. I appreciate it. Your brain is like clever bot if was made into get laid with bro, what language do you speak? I can use AI to translate. What language? I can't understand, bro. I can't even understand you. What are you saying? What language? What language? Indian? Do you speak Indian? You're Japanese. Okay, speak in Japanese then. I got you, fam. Use Japanese. This guy, dude, this guy, dude, you're crazy, bro. You're fucking crazy. He just starts typing gibberish. Oh my god.
It becomes kind of obvious. Trade in regards to quote unquote what people want and what rewards people will accept in order to fulfill their desired outcomes in the future is subjective over time. People don't always want the same things, and so naturally over time there will be variability. It's not actually possible to be 100% accurate. And thus from that you will come to the realization of why you need logic to truly understand economics. You can't just simply memorize a lot of mathematical formulas and leave it at that. A lot of economic models will help you and they'll usually be right, but when they're wrong, people just kind of turn into flabbergasted monkeys. And so that's why you need the Austrian school of economics to truly get what's going on.
All right.
And that's just one example of something that you'll eventually figure out if you fully and truly understand what it implies by the fact that you can either trade with punishment or trade with reward. And you'll also kind of start to understand the basic problem with government intervention. Like, for instance, this tweet from Elon Musk. The reason government programs are so inefficient is that, unlike a commercial company, the feedback loop for improvement is broken because they have a state-mandated monopoly and can't go out of business if customers aren't happy. No matter how bad the service is at your DMV, sorry to pick on DMVs, you still have to use your DMV because it's a monopoly. Although me personally, I'm not sorry at all. The DMV sucks, and it's always annoying to go there. But seriously, this tweet from Musk is really just rooted in understanding of the trade dichotomy. Because government programs are based on power and forcing people to do things, rather than the voluntary side of trade, it can keep going even if people don't like it, and so inefficiencies don't get improved on, and thus government programs are doomed to eventual inefficiency. No matter how well designed they are from the get-go, the fact that it's based on power means they don't have that voluntary component, and so there's no real incentive to fix things when crap goes wrong. And so that's your basic cheat code. Just remember this dichotomy, remember that trade is either voluntary or it's not, and you'll become capable of, just from a logical basis, being able to see through a lot of really stupid commie propaganda. Which then brings us to our first lie that is fueling our economic illiteracy crisis. And that is this lie of neo-socialism. Socialists in the modern day clown world want people to think, and they've unfortunately
they want you to believe that basically it hasn't been tried before in its true form, and that's the reason it failed literally every other time historically when applied to like a national government is because it just hasn't reached its final form. It's like fucking Frieza that hasn't reached its final form. You know, it's like they just keep making excuses for the fact that it fails.
Successfully gotten this propaganda
but this
to the
time we'll get it
generation,
right.
including sadly my own generation, the millennial generation, that there's some kind of new spin on socialism that's going to make it totally not fail this time. That socialists have learned from the past, and there's this new, hip, trendy, scientifically accurate way to do socialism and have a fair and free economy and have it finally work for the common man. And so the theories behind socialism have finally been perfected, the flaws have been ironed out, it's totally going to work this time, guys, and it's going to be great. Hence why I call it the lie of neo-socialism. That there's something new that we just haven't thought of yet that's going to be better. And indeed, this is one of those things where if you understand that cheat code I gave you, that dichotomy of trade, you realize that no, there's nothing new they're really offering here at all. Because the thing is, it's not some ubiquitous, just general socialism that's the issue, but rather the problem is that they're proposing policies that are rooted in punishing the producers while rewarding the consumers. That's what the whole free stuff tough dance they offer is really about. And so when you look at their policies, you realize that they're really just a bunch of things that have actually been tried and failed. There's nothing really new here. Like Katie Wilson has proposed increasing taxes on quote-unquote the rich to fund government-subsidized housing, and a citywide capital gains tax, while Mamdani has run on rent control, even rent freezing, and free public transit, and government-run grocery stores. All of these are policies that have been tried and failed. They don't work. There's nothing new here. It's just now being sold to us by people who are slightly younger, in their 30s
Yeah, this
and
time
early
it's
40s,
gonna work.
rather than just old Bernie climbing out of his
We
chair
just
to tell
fucked
us
up
that the
last
solution
time,
to
you know?
government corruption is, of course, somehow more government. Yeah, no, it's the same crap. Government-subsidized housing doesn't work because it's inherently inefficient, it doesn't really make the housing that people really want, and of course it ignores the real problem behind the housing crisis, which is poor zoning laws, which create an artificial monopoly on land, and thus artificially lowers the supply of housing. This is kind of a silly midwit meme that's out there. A lot of times midwits will come up with a bunch of silly ways to solve the housing crisis without increasing the supply of housing, and they're wrong. Every time this has been tried, it has resulted in low-quality housing produced at a lower rate than a free market policy would have created.
And they make it so hard to like actually make anything. So one thing that I noticed here's like a weird thing I noticed when I was in like California, right? They wanted to build this cafe, right? Like kind of near where I live. They were gonna build like this little it's not like really a full cafe. It's like those like small, almost like a Farmer Boys. It's like a small like breakfast and lunch, like kind of fast food, but like it has like a little bit of a dine-in. It has like a counter dine-in, like kind of like a, like a McDonald's, but they had like, things like egg plates, like waffles, but then you would walk up to the counter and buy it, and then you would take it to your table, right? So they wanted to build one of those things, and they started building it 2 years before I moved. They were like, yeah, this is coming here soon, and we're building it right now. And then like they didn't come out. They didn't come out. They didn't come out. They finally came out after I left California. I had fucking left I had left and moved to Texas before they even opened the building. And this is like 2 to 3 years, right? Now, because they needed to get like, they were talking about it like in the Facebook, and these permits, and I'm building like this parking lot and stuff like that. Anyway, so one thing I noticed, so in Texas, they were like, by the way, we're building a new restaurant, and it's going to be built here. I'm like, okay. A month later, it's fucking there. And I was like, what the fuck? Like, so it can be done. It can be done. They can just build the building. What the fuck is going on in California? You know what I mean? It's because they put all these fucking laws that makes it really hard to actually develop anything, right? So now apply that to housing, right? Now you have a place where you can't build housing because you have like your environmental regulations, noise regulations, people just don't want to build there because the taxes are too high, or there's some kind of, some kind of rent controls, or some policy that makes it really bad for people that like build houses, where, we give too much power to like people that are renting, where, like squatter laws, for instance, right? Like the laws are so bad that they're so easily abusable. And you have all of these things that makes people go, you know what? Fuck it. I don't want to build in California. You're fucking kidding me. Like, why would I want to build in Los Angeles? Right. And then so what happens is you have less of a supply of housing and business space because of all of these laws, which then increases the price, which then makes them go, oh, we have to like put more laws to make it so that there's affordable housing. It's this big fucking combo. It's like an avalanche of shit, basically. It's a full on avalanche of shit.
And what's interesting is combining this with a capital gains tax. What happens with this is that it creates something known as a lock-in effect, which is where someone has an asset that has a gain on it, a capital gain. So something's increased in value, but they don't want to realize the gain. And so this...
Can I ban? Sure, you guys want me to ban them? What do you think, chat? All right, chat. All right, we're going to do this just like the old ways. All right, just like the Coliseum. All right. Kick chat. 1 for ban, 2 for no ban. This is like the Caesar thing. We get the thumbs up. 1 for ban, 2 for no ban. 1 for ban. Well, the people have spoken. I'm sorry, man. I'm sorry, man. The people have spoken. I wash my hands of this. I wash my hands of this.
Actually disincentivizes trade. And there's a lot of examples of this, but you know what one big one is?
Guys, aren't we so democratic here? We're so fucking democratic, aren't we?
The housing market. When you have this kind of tax,
Have you participated in Asmon streams and seen how he handles retard chatters? He's super ban happy. Well, I mean, I'd imagine Bimmy Fuchs that like he gets so many retards that he's just kind of tired of it. But I like to have a little bit of fun. You know, I don't really get it that much, so it's kind of like I need to, you know, I need to build up to like the Asmon Gold level, right, where I just insta ban people, right? But for now, I'm having fun. But I'm sure one day I'll get old, right?
actually hurts the housing market by encouraging people, or companies even, to sit on properties forever instead of actually selling them to people. Again, kind of obvious when you push the logic of understanding the trade dichotomy to its logical conclusion, but we also have empirical understanding that this doesn't work from past happenings. For instance, when the Taxpayer Relief Act of 1997 came out, it raised the exclusion rate of capital gains tax from 125k to 500k. And the result was that a lot of older people were more willing to move and sell their houses, and thus incentivizing the trade of housing more, and thus incentivizing more housing construction on the free market side of things, because they were no longer being punished for doing so. Now, of course, Katie Wilson's proposal, if you look into it a bit more, it shows that it excludes real estate. So this wouldn't happen, right? I mean, she's only planning to target stocks, bonds, and sales and other financial assets other than housing exceeding $250,000. Woo! So housing is safe, right? Well, no.
The problem, you know, the problem with a lot of this like leftist policy, to be honest, like a lot of it is jealousy based. Or they just fucking mad. They mad, bro, because they don't have shit, so they're mad. And then they want to just take it from people. It's like what most of it is, actually.
The problem, there's tax incidents to also factor into this. It's not really possible to predict who exactly is going to pay the penalty for a tax. You end up with second and third order effects on the market. And so if someone doesn't want to sell a stock, then they also might not want to buy a house. That's how trade works. Assets move. And so that's a silly lie I see people saying, oh, she's excluding real estate transactions, therefore it's not going to affect real estate. Really? So people don't trade other assets that she is targeting for real estate? That just never happens? It's completely insane. If someone has an asset that is affected by it, then it will therefore be affected by the lock-in effect, and thus that asset will be less likely to be used to improve the housing market. This idea that the government can somehow isolate sectors of the economy and decide how the taxations affect the entire economy has been pretty roundly debunked. It's pretty obviously insane when you just think about it. I mean, imagine if you wanted to buy a house. You've been wanting to buy a house for a very long time, and so you've been saving to buy a house by, say, investing in the Dow Jones or something for 10 years. Now imagine the government passing a law that taxes your gains from this stock investment of yours by about 50% or so. And then imagine some socialist midwit coming up to you and telling you, with a straight face mind you, that the government taking away your gains from the stock market will have no effect on your choice of whether or not to buy a house, or where to buy a house, or what house to buy, because the capital gains tax doesn't target the housing market. I mean, just wow.
They don't understand that like money moves, right? Like money, and I've noticed this problem kind of a lot with people on the left. They don't understand that money moves and a lot of it is fungible. So like there's like, so for instance, if I'm trying to think of like a good example in this way, right? So anytime you lose money in one thing, it obviously affects everything else. And it's the same thing where if you gain money for something, right? So for instance, they have this problem, right, where they'll give people money, be like, oh, what they need money for food. They need money for food. But then the person's really irresponsible. And you know what that means, right? Is that means that you give them money for food, and now they spend the money that they should have also spent on food on something else. Because anytime that you give, when you give someone money, this another example is like foreign aid. When you give like a foreign country, like, oh, you need money for medicine or something like that, right? Well, now they have more money to spend on weapons, right? Because you gave them money for medicine. So even if they only use it for medicine, now they can reallocate the money that they would have spent on medicine in the first place to buy weapons. And you know, this applies even in the way that Mentis is saying, is that if you were going to spend money on a house, and then they tax something else, like say like your groceries. Say you're a responsible person and they tax your groceries or they tax your stocks. Now you don't have the money now to redirect into buying the house. It has to come from somewhere. Money always flows, right, to the lowest place, basically the most stable form. Basically, it'll always flow to that. And that's the problem with these people. For some reason, they think it's so segmented. Like the jars are all separate. Like, oh, like there's money for food, and then there's money for medicine, and like each of these jars can't like mix. For some reason, they think that.
Wow. These people are insane. They actually belong in the loony bin. I mean, sure, excluding certain sectors of the economy might make it have less of a negative impact, but having a 15% negative impact instead of a 30% negative impact, I mean, that's still bad. You're still going to make the problem you're trying to fix worse by doing so. So this just kind of further shows the problem that is fueling our economic illiteracy crisis here. People don't think, they don't use logic, they don't understand why these things work. And
well, to be fair, like I'm just gonna be honest. Stenzaga, thank you so much for the sub. Thank you. To be honest, it's a little bit complicated, and it might not seem complicated to you, chat, or to Mentis. It might not seem really complicated, but it's really, really complicated because you have to think beyond like one level, basically. Like if you only think on one level, then you'll only see the jars as individuals. You have to like take it to like one more step to like actually see that like the money will flow between the jars, and then it starts to make sense. But a lot of people can't even get to that level of thinking. To be honest, it's a little too much for people.
Unless they think that they can not harm the housing market by excluding the housing market, as if the housing market somehow exists in a void or alternative reality that somehow has nothing to do with the rest.
Put it this way, there's people that can't even handle, they don't even understand like what a hypothetical is. You're gonna have to understand it like in terms of that, right? So think about that. Now, it makes sense why people wouldn't be able to understand that second level of logic when it comes to the economy. And this is why the economic stuff is like so difficult for people, because you already have to be able to go beyond like one order of logic in order to reach any sort of conclusion with it.
To the market. But what about Mamdani? Did he come up with anything better? Spoiler alert, no, he didn't. Rent control has been tried so many times, and it has failed
I had
so
breakfast
many times.
This morning.
It helps a few people, the people who actually get to have their rents frozen, but it always has one of two problems, usually them both. One, it will discourage more economic development in terms of housing in the area, or two, it will discourage improving the building that is affected by the rent control. Yep. So hilariously enough, it actually kind of has the same negative effects as government-run housing, because you're again forced.
It has so many drastic effects. It's like one, it's like you tax people, or you do something to the government. Oh, we need more money, so let's tax the rich. Well, what's going to happen now is there's less money to invest in future things, so the business doesn't grow as much, which means they can't hire as many people. In fact, they might have to fire people, because if they're kind of a more struggling business and then you increase the taxes on them, now they have to fire people. Now people lose their jobs. Right. And that has a drastic snowball effect, because now you fired a person who had a job, and now that person doesn't have money to buy from another business. So now that business also starts to do poorly. And when that business starts to do poorly, now they have to fire somebody. And then it's a fucking avalanche of all of this shit. It's so obvious. It's like it's like dominoes or like mousetrap or something, right? Or the entire thing just starts to collapse. All because you got a little bit greedy, right? And this is like where people talk about, well, if you want to increase government revenue, then you have to like lower the taxes. And people be like, what the fuck? That doesn't make any sense. Why would you lower the taxes if you want to make more government revenue? Well, because now businesses are encouraged to expand. Businesses are encouraged to like say, well, we have a little bit of a surplus now, so like why don't we like build another business, or like why don't we hire more people? Or why don't we expand into a different market? And then they do all these things, which then makes more revenue. It makes more money. Now you have more workers who are paying income taxes, and then like everything kind of gets buffed that way. And that's basically that's the free market like economic theory, basically, right? Where and that's what all of that growth leads to, like a higher amount of taxes in the end.
people
That's it,
to have
basically.
that price with the threat of punishment. And so the net effect is that the people who get it for that price, they obviously benefit, but the rest of the market suffers. This has been tried over and over and over again, and Mamdani, from what I could look up, is not proposing any kind of significant, amazingly different way to.
I guess some people can't really do abstract thinking. Maybe, dude, I think that is the case. Like the more I kind of am out there, the more I deal with people, the more I realize that there's really, it's not it. Okay. Prior to being a streamer, like maybe the last 3 years, it was difficult for me to fathom that people didn't think the way I do. Does that make sense? It's very, very difficult to fathom that like not being able to comprehend a hypothetical. Like that idea to me is so weird that like I can't even, it's hard for me to process, really. It's not difficult to imagine. It is for me, because I'm like, how do you even perceive the world without like that way? It's difficult for me, right? And it's kind of like you have the realization like, oh, wow, like that's kind of like a lot of people's experience, is that they actually can't even compute that. So then it starts to all make sense. And it's kind of rough, honestly. It feels bad, honestly. It does.
Do it. Or how about free public transit? Now, that's where the problem of subsidizing the consumer while punishing the producer really starts to take effect. Because the issue with making something quote-unquote free is that it doesn't actually resolve the scarcity of that thing. It does not magically increase capacity or increase the supply of it. And so with the price factor signal removed, there's no real reason to ration it. People start to overconsume it. And so demand for it gets really high, leading to either A, overcrowded, crappy buses, often filled with a lot of people who haven't really thought out their transit options
because you need more money in order to make it better.
Bus schedules, because a lot of times
in a free market, right? If there's more people using the bus, then the bus company goes, or they can say, hey, we're making a lot of money, so let's buy another bus, right? So it's kind of like, if you're not making any money from it, then it's kind of like, well, why would we? The buses are free, so you just fucking leave them, and you shit just ends up becoming suck, really. So it's kind of like you're forced into a state of suck. Everybody is forced into a state of suck.
Be able to get new buses in time.
It's kind of the issue with healthcare, with like universal healthcare. Like a lot of people do want that. I mean, the problem with that is it doesn't resolve the suckage factor, and it just makes everybody have suck, basically.
Always know exactly how much they need, since they've again taken away the price signal by making it quote-unquote free. And so then instead they just punish the productive, because of course they have to pay for it somehow, and usually the standard scam here is to just tax the rich, which I've already done an entire video on why taxing the rich actually just ends up taxing everybody, and that's just the tax incidence I mentioned earlier. But
for the reason that we said earlier, that if you tax the rich, now they have to pass on the costs like through their business, and so like whatever they charge for their business, they're just going to increase the price of that, which then makes everyone have to pay more and fucks everything over. People lose jobs, and then it avalanches down, basically. That's why it's a bad idea.
Enough, again, going back to that cheat code I gave you.
I'll give you a cheat code. Actually, I want to hear what Mentis' cheat code, but like, let me tell you my cheat code. My cheat code is anything the government does sucks. It's almost universally true that anything that they do sucks ass, almost always.
Earlier, if you know that people don't like being punished,
it's like 99%.
Congratulations, if you understand that, you are a basically rational human being. No, really, you'd be surprised at how many people don't get that one. Anyway, people will often do things to avoid the punishment, or kind of shift things around, or change their incentives. Or in other words, they'll want to compensate for the loss caused by the punishment.
Unless they don't like you. Then if they don't like you, then they become insanely good. Right? Like, man, they find like anything they could get on Trump. Holy fuck. Like, they're crazy, man. But if they don't care, then they're so bad at everything.
And so this often leads to them being less willing to part with other assets, thus leading to increased prices and reduced trade. In other words, it negatively affects the whole economy. So it's not actually free. The whole city pays for it. Even if you claim that you're only gonna tax the billionaires to pay for it. Well, no, that problem is always eventually going to spread into trade into other sectors of the economy, and thus it won't just affect the billionaires. But since this isn't immediately obvious, it doesn't really fix the problem that there's no price signal behind find something that's quote-unquote free. And so people just keep overusing it, and bureaucracy causes it to become more and more inefficient, and the quality of the public transit thus takes a nosedive. Which then, hilariously enough, people will actually start paying to get back into their own cars and avoiding the public transit because they don't want to deal with the crappy quality caused by making it free.
Thanks for the follows. Thank you.
And then lastly, there's government-run grocery stores. And spoiler alert, no, there is no new, magical, newly figured out socialist way to make these finally work. Yes, they've been tried in the past, and they have failed. Now, if you don't know, a government-run grocery store, they're often created in places that they deem a food desert because a private grocer will shut down, which, spoiler alert, there's usually a reason they do that. And these grocery stores will, of course, often have heavily discounted prices, subsidized, of course, by the taxpayer. But the big issue with them is that, in terms of socialist programs, if you want to give people free food, or at least heavily discounted food, government grocery stores are the dumbest way to do it. It's actually significantly worse than SNAP program. Because the SNAP program, yes, it's inefficient.
Because now the government runs it, whereas the other way, at least it's partially, like, private.
Because it's giving people a free food, but at least they have to buy it from a private grocer, and thus the funds at least go back into the economy.
Yep,
and so while there are problems with it, it's not the worst it can be. And yet government grocery stores come in and try to solve a problem by just not understanding the problem, and thus thinking that the problem with the government is that there isn't enough government. Because another thing with government programs, because they're always fundamentally rooted in power in some way, even when it's a grocery store and there is some kind of voluntary exchange at the checkout stand, it's still
it's like, you guys know that meme that's like I'm the government and I'm here to help, and it's like, oh god.
To the bureaucratic rule of three. And so, of course, the result is that the store is always going to
leave me alone.
And so these grocery stores always end up
don't
losing
touch
money.
me.
I think the silliest example was Erie Market from Erie, Kansas in the past. This is one where the private owner of the store retired, and so the city bought it from him. They ran it poorly because it consistently lost money, and so they ended up selling it back to the private sector. And another issue with these kind of grocery stores is that sometimes the problem is just very high crime and high theft, and so that's why the store leaves. And the unfortunate reality is that crime and theft isn't necessarily always caused by socioeconomic factors. There's a lot of other factors at play. And so they bring in the government-run grocery store, but they don't really think to address why the crime is happening. Like, for example, one government-run grocery store in Kansas called Sunfresh. People were investing millions into this thing. The reason it had to come up was because there was a food desert created by grocery stores leaving due to theft. And so then this government-run grocery store comes in and also gets destroyed by theft. Absolutely brilliant. Class act.
Yep.
Except this time, they also stole from the taxpayer as well. And Mamdani, he's just proposing more of this in New York City. It's not gonna get better, and it's also just kind of completely unnecessary. The private sector already does a good job of running grocery stores. Every time the government tries it, they ruin it, because again, the price indicators aren't there anymore, and so it's just a big waste of time. And when you look behind the scenes, what you're really seeing is it's all just the same old equity propaganda. We need these stores because there's food access equity. And what these socialists are doing is they're trying to fix that problem without understanding the problem. And what's weird is that plenty of people...
Dude, their one job is to prevent crime. That's like the main job of the government, and they can't even fucking do that. And yet they want you to be... And they want to say, like, don't worry, we can solve your other problems too. Don't worry, we're here to save the problem. We're here to save the day. The government. It's like they can't even do the fucking one thing they're supposed to do.
Called out Mamdani and Wilson over how these policies aren't really gonna work. Which, interestingly enough, brings me to the second major lie, which I guess the best way to call it is the anti-economics conspiracy theory. Because of course economists, even mainstream economists, have come out against Mamdani's policies and explained why Wilson isn't really doing anything new. It's not gonna work, it didn't work before, they haven't changed anything, there is no neo-socialism, and yet these words fall on deaf ears. And the reason for
That's
it...
because people are fucking retarded and they get baited every single time. I'm gonna give you guys free stuff this time. Believe me, if you vote for me, I'll give you free shit. You're gonna get everything for free. And everyone's like, wow, I love free stuff. Let's vote for... They get fucking baited. Dude, it's literally... You know what it's literally like? It's this on a grand scale. Hello, I am a prince from Nigeria, and I need your help. I'm going to give you for free $2 million. All I need is for you to do this thing for me. They fall for it every fucking time, chat. Every time. It's literally the same thing. It's just like with a new coat of paint.
Found out is that there's this really weird distrust of economics that's kind of been spreading throughout the populace, and it's based on some really dumb fallacies. That may sound a bit weird, so let me give you an example to show you what I'm talking about. This X post right here that I replied to. Why Mum Donny would be bad for struggling young New Yorkers, explained by a 67-year-old billionaire who lives in $22 million estate in Dallas. And of course, the problem is the argument he was giving was just basic economics. So yes, this guy is unironically implying that he's wrong simply because he's rich. And this actually ties into kind of a greater conspiracy theory that the reason most economists or people who study the economy logically in some way or form or another generally reach
So here's the funny thing is if you were to think about it for more than 5 seconds, wouldn't you think that a person that does study economics,
who the fuck is Leaflit?
You would think that they probably would be rich because they would understand how money works and the flow of money. So then they would better be equipped to capitalize on it. So it just makes sense, you know?
Conclusion that the free market is a good thing. A lot of socialists especially seem to think that this is some kind of a plot or gaslighting tactic, or that economists are all being paid off by the rich.
Like people who have money, well, you know, obviously there's edge cases, there's people that just got money from daddy, but there is something to say that if a person has a lot of money, they probably know a little bit about money, right?
To essentially preach free market economics. And as much as I hate it to label something a conspiracy theory, because of course calling something a conspiracy theory doesn't automatically make it wrong, in this case it makes sense because socialists seem to believe this despite overwhelming evidence to the contrary. For example, the Mises Institute, which is probably the economists who have the greatest level of free market approach to things, or the Austrian school, they actually have a lot less funding to them than most other schools of economic thought. It was just kind of immediately puts a wrench in the idea that we're watching a video about the economy, or have some reason to support the free market that is a bit more nefarious. And another problem with the reasoning is you'll notice that a lot of times there are rich people who support socialism, and the rich who do support socialism are often those who got rich through purely luck, like being handpicked as a Hollywood manufactured star or something, or just inherited their wealth. Those are the ones that are most likely to be socialists and have authoritarian ideas on the economy. It's generally the self-made rich people, the ones who actually did well, who will explain economics to you and explain why the free market is good. Whereas if this conspiracy was true, I would honestly expect the opposite of this. But of course, the biggest problem just comes back to logic. A lot of economics really just confirms what the Austrian school already logically figured out is true. For instance, going back to the cheat code I mentioned earlier, understanding that trade is either voluntary or not will help you reach a lot of those economic concepts simply by yourself, simply by thinking about it and reaching the logical conclusions by yourself. And so really, this is the equivalent of someone saying that 2 + 2 = 5, and the only reason that we're always saying that 2 + 2 = 4 is because elite mathematicians are engaged in a mass gaslighting conspiracy to hide the truth from the people about how 2 + 2 = 5. Which I guess, in a way, that kind of makes sense if you put yourself in the shoes of someone who's just completely mathematically incapable. If you truly believed, with all of your heart, that 2 + 2 really does equal 5, and you don't really have any other good argument as for why, but you still truly, fully believe it, and you refuse to let go of that belief, then yes, you are kind of forced to say that all mathematicians and all the school textbooks on math, and pretty much everything related to computers, because computers wouldn't work if 2 + 2 = 5, you would have to believe that it's all part of some huge mass conspiracy. But I think the most interesting thing about it is that it's kind of, in a way, projection. You see, socialists generally tend to believe in the labor theory of value, and so thus they believe that the rich are getting rich by exploiting the workers, by extracting their surplus labor value, and stealing it from them. And so, based on this belief, they're assuming that all rich people are evil, and that's because all rich people are evil, specifically rich business owners who are stealing the surplus labor value. They are thus asserting that they also must be evil enough to spread this massive lie about the free market being good. And that is actually psychological projection, because they're judging people's motives based on what they believe, rather than what the person they're judging likely believes. I've seen this kind of bad reasoning in theology debates before. For instance, I saw a Christian apologist who, I guess, believed that he was talking to an atheist, use this typical argument, which, by the way, this is a bad argument. If you're a Christian, don't use this argument. If you ever get into theology or apologetics, do not use this argument. It's very bad. bad. And anyway, he said that, oh, the only reason you don't believe in God is because you must hate God. And the problem is he was actually debating a Muslim, and I just didn't realize that. And so the Muslim replied, well, actually, I think you're the one who hates Allah because you reject Muhammad's word. And of course, they were both wrong, especially since technically Yahweh and Allah are the same person, but whatever. The core problem of the reasoning is that the reason someone doesn't believe in a certain thing isn't because they hate that certain thing, it's because they just don't believe in it. They haven't seen enough evidence to believe in it. And so the reason a Christian isn't a Muslim isn't because they hate God, it's because they just don't believe that the Quran is the word of God, for whatever multitude of reasons led them to conclude that the Bible was a better source of truth. And likewise, the reason a Muslim is not a Christian isn't because they hate God, it's because for them the opposite is true. They have seen various reasons and whatever that have led them to believe that the Quran is true. And of course, if it was an atheist, the reason an atheist doesn't believe in God isn't because they hate God. I mean, you can't really hate something you don't believe in. It's very ridiculous anyways. It's just because they haven't seen proof that God exists. They don't think there's enough evidence to believe it, for whatever reason. But the point is, the fallacy here is just projection. They're taking what they believe and projecting it on other people, and taking what motives they would have for believing something and projecting it onto their opponent. So for instance, a Christian might tell himself, oh, I believe that the Bible is the word of God, and so to them, if they were to stop following the Bible, they believe that the reason they would do that is simply because they wanted to sin or they hated God or something like that, because that's what they believe. And when it comes to understanding other people's beliefs and other people's motives, a lot of people seem to forget that that's actually really terrible reasoning. It's extremely solipsistic. And that's pretty much what socialists are doing in this one. They're just projecting their idea that rich people are lay evil, exploiting lay workers who are lay innocent victims, and therefore because they are lay evil, and the only reason, at least in the socialist minds, they would do that is because they are lay bad, well then, they must also be bad enough to engage in this mass gaslighting conspiracy. And all rich people are just lying to you about the economy, so that they can keep exploiting workers and extracting their surplus labor value. And of course, it's nonsense. It's very dumb. And this kind of then immediately jumps into the third lie, which is, I guess we'll call it the regulation lie. A lot of times,
What's funny is, like, I have had times where people have told me that. They've told me, you know, the problem with you, Leaflit, is that you don't change your mind on this thing. Like, there'll be like a thing, right, where I have like a logical foundation behind it, and I'll explain my logical foundation, and I'll be told by like some leftist person or some person on the left, they'll say, the problem with you, Leaflet, is like you believe that you're right, and you do not change your belief, and that's your problem. But like, and then I tell them, like, wait, what? Like, but why is that the problem? Because, like, have you considered that perhaps I haven't heard a good argument? Like, just the fact of not changing my mind doesn't immediately mean that I'm wrong. Like, what are you talking about? You know what I mean? Like, what the fuck?
Authoritarians who want the government to control something,
it's
they
such
will
a
always
dumb
point
argument.
to rising costs that are negatively impacting citizens and the poor, and therefore the government needs to jump in and help. And this, of course, comes with it tacked with a very simple lie, which is this idea that regulation reduces the prices. And the problem with it is it's usually only true in the short run, if it is ever true. In the long run, we actually have pretty solid data showing that this is just not the case. In fact, this one I'm not really going to spend much time on because it's pretty easy to refute if you just look at this graph right here. Price changes of consumer goods and services, and we see hospital services at the top have gotten over 200% more expensive in the last 20 years or so. The next is college, tuition and college textbooks, medical care, childcare, food and beverage and housing. And then things that haven't changed much are new cars, household furnishings, clothing, and then things that have gotten for the most part cheaper, things like software, toys, cell phone services, televisions, etc., etc. And if you know your regulations, then you might immediately notice a problem here. All the things at the top are things that are very heavily regulated, especially medical care, childcare, food, and housing, or just general hospital services, of course. And so we're seeing that regulation actually just consistently makes the market it attacks worse. Which, again, remember the cheat code. When you know that the only way to get people to do things is by force or by voluntary association, it makes perfect sense. But let's just focus on the one at the top here as just the kind of obvious example, hospital services. This one is just so obviously caused by regulation that even somewhat authoritarian and left-leaning think tanks have acknowledged that unnatural monopolies created by patent regulations are some of the biggest causes behind rising healthcare costs. And of course, there's no evidence whatsoever that making it free and more Medicaid and Medicare reduces those costs at all. And all of this just adds another layer of problems on top of subsidizing demand. The government will often subsidize demand by trying to make it free, while not getting rid of the problem that they caused, mind you, by regulations, and instead they just force the taxpayer to pay for the problem that government created.
Yeah, and the problem is the government, they're not really that interested in saving money because it's not their own, it's not their money, right? Like, have you guys ever had this happen? Hear me out, chat. And I don't know how many of you guys will relate to this. It's mostly for business people, like people that, like, you know, you work like a salary job, right? Have you guys ever had a case where you had to go on a business trip, or, you know, it's like a lunch and like your boss is like, well, you know, lunch is on us, you know, because everyone's working so hard. So, you know, go buy yourself something from, you know, some delivery or whatever, right? People will spend irresponsibly. They'll be like, wait, what? You mean I can spend money on like a fun dinner? And then they will buy literally the maximum level that they could buy. If they're like, yeah, spend you know, up to like $50, you bet your ass is gonna be like $49.99. You know what I mean? Fucking steak dinner, ribeye, fucking lobster tail. You know that people are gonna fucking do it, right? And it's because they don't really care, because it's not their money. It's not their money, so why the fuck not treat myself to, like, you know, somebody else's money, right? Now apply that same thing to the government. They don't care. The people in the government, or they're like, oh, you mean I gotta go buy some, I gotta do some contract where I gotta buy some medicine from some company? I don't really care. I mean, what's the easiest? What's the easiest? Oh, haggle with them? Nah. Why the fuck would I do that? Oh, you mean I can buy from my friend? You mean my friend? He's gonna charge a lot of money, but I can buy from my friend and give my friend the money? Yeah? And then they'll do that. This is what I mean. Like, there's no responsibility for it. However, if it's your money, right? If it was your money, if it was your $50, you would think before you buy that steak and lobster dinner. You'd be like, do I really want a steak and lobster dinner? Or do I get like 4 hamburgers? I could get like 4 hamburger dinners for the price of a steak and lobster dinner. Is it worth it today? I don't know. Do I feel like treating myself? I don't know. Maybe I feel like being a little bit frugal today. You know, this month, money's been a little bit tight. You know, I want to roll in Uma Musume at the end of the month. So like, maybe I save the money now, right? So you have that entire internal monologue about whether or not it's worth it to buy the steak. Whereas if it's someone else's money, you're like, fuck it, you just buy a steak. Right, and that's kind of what I mean. That's the government, basically, with everything. Anytime you give the government money, it's not their, they don't care. It's not their money.
The economy more and more inefficient. But I think when it comes to regulations, the biggest problem, and I think the biggest lie behind why so many people, and this is
the only time that it becomes a problem is when they hold you accountable. So if your boss goes, okay, I'm going to trust you. I'm going to trust you to spend this money wisely for the team. Here's the money that you have. But I'm going to hold you accountable. Then they'll care. But the problem is, how do you hold the government accountable? It's fucking impossible.
The one that even hits some people on the right, or general Republicans and conservatives often fall for this one. The last very big lie is the lie that corruption is a feature of the free market. This idea that lobbying, revolving doors, and political donors and all the corruption that often stems from that is in fact all because of capitalism. And we need socialism to fix it. And this one's kind of an annoying lie. It's a very pervasive lie, and I've noticed that it's a big reason behind why so many people are turning to socialism, which is insane, because when you actually understand it, you realize that this corruption is actually a function of socialism and authoritarian policies and has absolutely nothing to do with the free market. And the issue at hand seems to be that you have to kind of understand multiple components of economics and how things work, and you have to understand them all simultaneously to truly be able to see through this lie. It's very obviously a massive and insanely stupid lie when you finally get it. It actually might be one of the most obvious things wrong, at least from my perspective. But that's because I've kind of autistically studied a lot of this stuff. And it's only when you really get things does it become apparent. Now, the long answer, I've actually done an entire video on. It was a Refuting Bread2 episode where I was going over second thought. But here's a short answer. Here's the simplest way I could possibly explain it. And I must once again resummon the cheat code. Remember how transactions in trade negotiation are either voluntary or they are not? This is pretty much a true dichotomy that lies at the heart of true economic understanding. Well, ask yourself this. Why is it when a corporation or a rich person tries to bribe a politician through whatever various means of bribery, whether in illegal way or by excluding some legal loophole, which most of them do, doesn't really matter which one, why are they doing that? And the answer comes from the fact that they have correctly identified that what government really does is that it just moves value around without producing. It is essentially a non-productive class. If trade was voluntary, if people truly wanted something that was coming from the government, they would fund it voluntarily. And so when they're bribing the government, they are always bribing them from a standpoint of wanting the force side of the true dichotomy. In other words, they're just hiring a hitman. And so this kind of then brings us back to the whole tongue-in-cheek humor on Bernie Sanders, the government is corrupt and the solution is more government. But another way to put it is that the hitman is doing evil things and the solution is to give the hitman more guns and allow the hitman to do more evil things.
Yes.
And if we do that, then the hitman will prevent people from hiring him to do hitman things. Yeah.
Yeah,
and socialists have really done a very good job obfuscating this. They often don't want to admit the fact that their economic ideas really only have the praxis of force, and thus they're the ones that are at fault for this nonsense. If you want to reduce corruption, the reality is the only way to do it is by having an economy.
One thing that's really important here is just the idea of force in general. That when people, by the way, when you have like these people who demand free shit and they vote to get free shit, they are literally employing force against you to force you to give them free shit. So if you think about it that way, it becomes even more infuriating. That the entitled people in society are literally employing force to enslave you to their labor, basically. Yes, it is. It's like partial slavery, basically.
Economy and a society that values voluntary trade over the force. So you either reduce the number of hitmen or get rid of the hitman entirely, and that's really pretty much the only thing you can do. The opposite side of this, like say in communist China, they haven't gotten rid of the hitman. In fact, in China, it's even worse because in China, the hitman and the person who would be hiring the hitman are one and the same person, because that's what happens when the government starts taking over private enterprise. And so that's why the idea that you're going to fix this with socialism is completely insane. When you get rid of the free market, all you're really doing is just allowing the government to consolidate more power and consolidate more wealth in hopes that the hitman will just do the right thing out of the goodness of his heart. Which, spoiler alert, is just not a thing. Anyways, that's all I have to say for this one. Thanks
a really
for watching.
good video.
Please like, share, comment, and subscribe. And if you like my content and want to support me, you can do so on Ko-Fi, Subscribestar, or by buying some merch, or again by checking out this video's sponsor,
Highly recommend
Internet Access.
Highly recommend the MentisWave merch. I have 2 hats myself and a cup. I've got the taxation is theft
Thanks
cup.
again for
Very
watching.
good cup.
That is all.
Mug. I like how tall it is. It's like a lot taller than normal. For a mug, it's like I love it. It's a great mug. Highly recommend. Yeah, I also just really like MentisWave videos in general. If you want to learn, a little bit more about economics. Just kind of he does a lot of video essays just about different topics. Most of his angle is economic, but he does talk a little bit about like kind of cultural stuff as well. So I really do like Mentis. I'll send you guys a link to his channel. Highly recommend you check it out.